Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and a link in the info box below the video once it has rendered. Most importantly though, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. There are a couple of rules in the Hangout. Number one, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show, as sharing the show increases the live audience, of course, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show. And one last time, if you are new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Sleeping Warrior. Good to have you here, Sleeping Warrior. How are you doing?
Recovering. You sound like you're on the road to recovery as well, or are you getting worse?
I've been ill for about 2 weeks, so I think this is the tail end of it.
Yeah, I'm good. I have passed the link already to Glenn. What was it? Rue Hill? Was it called Rue Hill? Trying to get him in, but I don't know whether he'll turn up today. But I'm gonna, while there's nobody else in, I'm gonna take a minute to just give a shout out to a good enemy of mine that I used to enjoy fighting with, but because he's an idiot, I can't anymore, which is a shame. But nonetheless, when we were talking about the speed of light the other day, my view is that the photons do not come into your eye. My view is that you see the light because your eye is a photograph machine of some kind. We focus on light sources because we have focus in our eyes in the form of the iris. That changes the focal point, and there's no such thing as photons. I know that the photons is part of the explanation, but Sean Hufford did a quick video showing his little laser measurer, which I called him out on. I said, right, okay, so take the laser off, then do the thing, and it'll still work. So he basically covered it with a piece of paper, did the test, and it didn't work. And I was like, what's going on there? Now it appears that Sean was correct in the fact that his laser light works. It relies on the laser to work. So he called me an idiot for it. So I was wrong to say that his didn't need the laser light. So therefore, Sean and his little yellow thing is it does need it. It does need the laser. However, there is a but to this. In 2009, when we bought our first house, when we were doing it up, we had some really cool tools. And one of the cool tools, my dad had really cool tools, not me. One of the cool tools he had was a set square. And the set square was multi-purpose. It was a set square. It was also an angle measurer. It had like a built-in angle measurer that was like a spine that sat in the handle, so you could pull it out. But if you removed the ruler from the top of it, it had like a flat edge that you could use to butt up against a wall, and there was a laser in that, and you could press the button and it'd tell you the distance to the next thing that it was looking at. And obviously the laser was there as a guide. Now this is where I got my perception from. One day the set square got knocked off the worktop that we were working on, and the laser didn't work anymore because lasers are quite sensitive, but the actual measuring part of it still worked. So we were in a position where, even though it was now technically broke, it would still give you the measurement, but you just couldn't see precisely what you were looking at. But most of the time, you don't need precision with what you're looking at. You just need to know that it's looking at the wall in front of you. But it still worked. Now, I was happy with that because I understood that the laser was being used as a guide, not as part of the measuring device whatsoever. So that's why I had my perception that you don't need to have the laser. The laser was there as a tool, but it wasn't the critical component that made the thing work. But on Sean's does need the laser to work, and I'm happy and I'm persuaded by his evidence that it does. So with regards to Sean's laser measuring thing, that's fine. Sean's does need it. I was wrong. But with regard to the one that I had back then, and I can't even remember what brand it was, but it wasn't Stanley or whatever Sean's is. It must have had some different technology in it, but I did not need the laser for the device to still work. So I think it's literally a case of, well, maybe it was just a different bit of technology, and technology's moved on, lasers have got smaller. But in any event, Sean's needs the laser to work. Mine didn't. So shout out to Sean. I was wrong. Your laser measuring device does need the laser. Whether it's measuring the speed of light or not is another point. But on your measuring device, it does indeed need the laser. I was wrong. You were right. So now that that's out the way, but oh, by the way, Sean, it would also help if you return the compliment by telling everybody that you didn't have any legal evidence on me, you did not go legal, and you did not get to an ex parte hearing with a judge. Anyway, Glenn says that he's out tonight. Do me proud. Right, so with regard to individual perspectives, I think it was called, video, that we were talking about yesterday. If I can get this on screen, it would be great. Just trying to remember where it was. I get it off Jamie Brown's chat. So Jamie
while you're
Brown,
bringing it up, it's the one with Puffin Island in contention, correct?
Correct.
Not Penguin Island, as I called it yesterday.
Anglesey visible from 50 miles away. Right, so if I share my screen, come on, share screen. And then I'll just do the window. I don't need any more than that. Share that. Right, so make that bigger. Right, so this is the video yesterday from Jamie's chat. It's an original video from Individual Perspective. I need to subscribe to him.
Just got a black screen at the moment.
You got a black screen?
Yeah, try sharing again. I don't know if you selected the wrong tab or something.
Application window. That one. Oh, hang on a sec. I need to take this call. 1 sec. I'll be straight back.
To make any difference, as he's got his little screen share icon on, but there's no screen sharing going on by the looks of things. Had the same problem yesterday. Yeah, I don't know anything about this Puffin Island evidence. I'd not seen it until yesterday when it was first presented. Not that I can remember anyway. And I just don't think it's as good as Ranty's evidence. I think Ranty's evidence is stronger. Yeah, he's got this little tiny window that he's looking through on the beach, past the pier, and between the wind farms. So from his position, he's got in the near foreground this pier, and then in the mid-ground he's got these wind farms, and in the far distance he's got these mountains in Wales. And in terms of their geographical situation, they have been pinned down nicely by the fact that there's this pier in the foreground and these wind turbines in the background. So it really limits what these mountains can actually be. And yeah, it's quite amazing. Ranty going through his camera, and initially, he dug it out, showed me, and he was like, the things that are important are X, Y, and Z, and immediately they all got debunked, of course. But he conceded it quickly, but said, no, it doesn't matter. In this picture, or a series of pictures that he'd taken initially 10 months ago on his P900, were still globe destroyers. And as it turns out, I think the Welsh Mountains one's going to prove more useful than perhaps at least I first suspected, because of something quite useful in it. And that is to say that there is the soundly refraction going on with the wind turbines, and that's useful if you've still got something in the far distance that's still not dropped anything like what it should have behind the curve. In fact, not dropped at all, from what Ranty's been explaining to me this morning on Skype. So it does seem like the evidence that Ranty's brought forward, although a bit cagey at first, which is always going to be the case, if that's why he's put it forward on a debate channel so people can examine it quickly. But it's proving more useful than first met the eye, I think, with these wind turbines. The same also applies to the evidence, just off the cuff, seeing it yesterday with Puffin Island. You've got these wind turbines dropping behind the curve, according to them, of course, not according to us, which you say is refraction. But they've got this refractive effect going on with the wind turbines, but you've still got land in the background. And if you're to believe that there's an exponential curve beyond where these wind turbines have dropped, then it's farcical to accept that the land is visible at all. There we go. Your screen just doesn't want to share, by the way.
I'm still on screen share.
No, it doesn't want to share. It's just your icon.
Oh.
Just the swinging warrior.
Why is it doing that? Let's knock it off again. I don't. Maybe I have to do the whole desktop.
Try the whole page. Doesn't matter if the link gets shared on this show. Just, but when people watch, they might not. Yeah, there we go.
Is that working?
Got that. Yeah.
Hang on, let me knock that off and see if it's application window that's naffed. That one.
What Anthony's currently doing is deciding if he wants to share his full screen. Which, if you're ever in anybody else's Hangout, don't share your full screen, because there's a chance that you'll show their Hangout key, and somebody could potentially literally scribble it down off screen, pause the screen, write down what's on screen, and yeah, nick the Hangout key. For me, it makes no difference. I'm running via OBS, and I give out the link to the public anyway, so it makes no odds. But it might give people a slightly false sense of security if they see us constantly just sharing our screen and not really caring. If you're running it via Google+, never, ever, ever do that.
All right, so basically, I've been speaking with Glenn in the last hour or so, and the guy in the guy that's made this video claims that this is. I'll play the video from the beginning. So he's got the sunset, and Glenn wanted to use the sunset as a focal point for coordinates, and I said, well, no, because we know that they're not accurate with regards to England. I don't really care if you're going to argue against that. We're not going to use sunset figures on dateandtime.com because we've got issues with them. But in any event, he wanted to use the sun. So I said no. So what we can see here is that there's a set of turbines in the foreground, which is Burbo Bank, and then we've got a set of turbines in the middle ground, and then we've got more turbines that are sat right on the horizon. Now, we have the land in the background, and he identifies this land as Anglesey. And I agree with him, it's Anglesey. So once we get past the Anglesey bit, so he's doing what everybody would do here, which is looking at the land to try and get the shape of it. Now, the land then stops. And then we see these two turbines in the foreground, which are the last two turbines in the Burbo Bank section. And we see this land here, which he calls Puffin Island. And yesterday, because it was called Puffin Island, we referenced it as Puffin Island. Since yesterday, Glenn's gone away and he said that's not Puffin Island. Well, I'm not too bothered whether it's Puffin. My position was that it is Puffin Island, but it doesn't make that much difference if it is or isn't, because the land to the right of it is what's on shot. And the name of the video is Anglesey visible from 50 miles away. It's not Puffin Island visible from 50 miles away. We went with this as an identifier to validate the rest of the observation. But Glenn's gone away and said, that's not Puffin Island, that's something else. And we said, okay, well, what's the evidence for it? And what he's tried to argue is that the land that's there is Great Orme, and this is the part left of Great Orme, and then this is somewhere else. This is the land behind Great Orme. So what Glenn's position is that we're seeing, where he's got the word Puffin Island, we're not actually seeing Puffin Island, we're seeing Great Orme. So I thought that's an interesting perspective. Let's see whether that makes any sense. I'm going to have to do this on the fly because I haven't actually looked at this yet. Ranty was looking at it. I think I know roughly where he was. But unfortunately, this is going to come down to the exact location where he filmed this video, because parallax changes this. So if you're a couple of centimeters out, it makes a difference, and it makes a lot of a difference, because when I was talking to Ranty earlier, and basically the line here goes to Great Orme, and then there's Puffin Island. And then when we bring it back down here, he was on the car park at Formby. Now, I'm not entirely sure where he was. I've not looked it up, so I'm trying to find where the car park is that he would have been on. It's a long, thin one on the front. Do you know where it is, Nath?
Nope. I don't know anything about this observation. All I know is what you've shown me yesterday and now.
He was at... I can't remember exactly where he was, and I can't find it because I've not actually looked at this yet. Ranty's done it. But the point that I'm making... Oh, there's the car park. So he was on this car park somewhere, and he gave his position mark. He showed where he was. Need my line back. So there's the line marker. Now, basically, it depends on which space he was in, where he was, because what it does is it doesn't change the land that's in the background, but it changes the perception. So let's just say he was in that car parking space, just for example. what it does is it affects the turbines that I don't have on screen. It affects the position in the foreground. Obviously, the background doesn't change, but the position of the turbines in the foreground does. Now, the argument is that if we can identify these two turbines that are in the foreground accurately, we can see that the land behind it falls immediately to the left of them. So, but the problem with it is these two turbines act as a swinging point, a balancing point, and basically a little bit out in the foreground where we are in the car park changes the parallax of these two like a lot because it's right next to us. Obviously, this won't change, but relative to this, it will. So without GPS and without an accurate position of where he is, we're kind of taking our best guess. And basically, if you're 2 or 3 car parking spaces either way, it either is or is not, and we don't know is the answer. So we're not able to conclude with any accuracy or certainty what this land actually is because we don't know exactly where the guy was. He did do a 360 rotation video in which he showed where he was, but again, you can't work. You don't know it exactly. You can just pinpoint it to one of about 6 car parking spaces, maybe 4 parking spaces. But the conclusion was, well, he's misidentified this land as Great Orme instead of he's misidentified it as Puffin Island instead of Great Orme. And I was like, well, okay, well, let's say that's the case. What's the situation with regard to the other land at the beginning of the video, which he claims is Anglesey? Because all that land has to be accounted for, and that is quite a lot of land. And the answer, of course, is, well, it has to be Anglesey, because even if he's got Puffin Island wrong, no, not that one. Even if he's got Puffin Island wrong, I'll zoom out to make it bigger. His viewing angle is such that, let's say he's got it wrong, and let's say that we're seeing that, right? All the land that's to the right is either that land there or it's land that's in the background, and it's a lot of it. And basically, it's the limitation of his camera on the day. And whatever that limitation is governs what he can see. But so it doesn't really make any difference whether he's got Puffin Island wrong or whether he's got this wrong, because it's one or the other. And until we know exactly where he is, we're not able to say with absolute certainty where is what it is he's looking at. But so I'll concede that it may not be Puffin Island for the sake of the discussion. But what's the rest of the land? Now, in any event, Puffin Island is part of Anglesey. Anglesey is this island here, this extremity of northern Wales. This is Anglesey, and it's separated by the Britannia Bridge, which is you've got the Britannia Bridge and the Menai Bridge. That's the Menai, and then that's the Britannia. So this is what they call Anglesey. So fundamentally, it doesn't make any difference whether he's got Puffin Island wrong or right. What matters is what's the land to the right, and the problem with that is the land is there. So it's like we're seeing land that is somewhere about 50 miles away. So then obviously a baller is going to want to go to the magic maths to make this work for them. I like to go to the proper curve calculator, which is the Gizmodo one, what's it called? The Gizib one. So if we're at like 51 mile away and his eye height, I think his eye height was in feet. Let's go back to it, flick it back on. So this is where it gets a little bit contentious because, well, what value should we give him? It says on Google Earth 21 feet. Should we give him 150 feet? How much do we need to put it up by for them to be satisfied? I reckon.
Who cares? Just stick it in at 30 and go from there. Okay,
so we'll go with eye height at 30 feet. So at 30 feet, 51 miles. I mean, the target hidden height is 1,308 feet behind the curvature of the Earth. Now we are seeing hidden. We are seeing some element of like obstruction. So, oops, wrong one. So we are seeing some element of obstruction. I've lost my file. Where's my fault? Where's it gone? It's not that one. Lost it. Oh, it's because I've gone off it on here, haven't I? So we are seeing some element of obstruction, but it's 1,000 feet behind the curvature of the Earth. Now, if they go with the nonsense refraction from the Megaflump website, I don't even have it as a thing anymore. I don't even have it as a bookmark. Let's go back to the nonsense one. Bunk curve count. Distance in miles was 51. Viewer height, what do we say? 30. Then basically it's still 1,000 feet worth of refracted hidden. So when we go back to Google Earth, and then we look at what kind of values that we're looking at over on Anglesey, 1,000 feet of hidden is a lot. So let's get back over to Anglesey, and what we can do is, just as a quick check, we can add a polygon, which would be that one. Just put it all the way around. And then we can go into the measure, we can click that, okay, and then we can click on the properties of it, and then we can click the altitude, give it an absolute reference point, and in meters, like if we go to say 30 meters is 100 feet, so if we go to 30 meters, that's 100 feet worth of land, and then we click that link there. What that does is it puts all the stuff that's lit up at 30 meters, which is 100 feet. So then if we change this and make this say, I think we can do it by clicking. So if we go say 45 meters, does that change it? Maybe it has to be like this. There we go. So, I mean, we're seeing land that's here that's quite high. And the question that we're trying to establish is how high is the land that's here? So you can see that the lower land, I mean, basically, if we get, oops, not there, that too far. There, that's going to give us a continuous block of land pretty much, because we can see land in the picture. So we know that we're seeing land of at least 49, so call it 50, 150, 170. We're seeing at least 170 feet worth of land across the whole image. So then basically it comes to the point, well, all that land is meant to be way behind the curvature of the Earth, but we're seeing it. So again, it's a case of, well, how is this being accounted for? But fundamentally, it's behind the curve, and refraction isn't bringing it back. It's totally gone. So I don't know. I don't see any argument for how it's the case that even if he did misidentify Puffin Island, which I'm happy to say he did for the sake of the discussion, if he has misidentified it, then how is it that we're seeing all this land? Because that land should be gone. Even with magical maths, that land should be gone. So for me, this is evident that we're living on a flat plane. It can't be brought back. It's not an illusion. It's stronger than the Isle of Man evidence. And it's funny because I've seen this many, many, many times on my journeys around the coast, and I've never once thought to challenge it on the curve calcs, because you just don't think about it. You just look at it and because you see it all the time, you just don't even realize that it's not meant to be there. Now, their arguments, of course, were that, oh, well, the turbines look like they're behind the curve of the Earth. Well, okay, so then we go back to, well, what's really going on here? If the turbines are behind the curve of the Earth, then that land definitely should be behind the curve of the Earth. And clearly there's land there, and that's not a mirage. It's not a hologram. So if you accept that if you really think that we live on a ball Earth, then you've got to accept that not only is this a hologram and therefore you're a fantasist, you also have to accept that the physics involved here is so far beyond the norm physics that you realistically can't argue it, because it's nonsense. So sure, I'll go with Puffin Island being misidentified, sure. But if we live on a ball an Earth the size of a basketball, as per these turbines, or as per Soundly, there's a whole lot of land here that needs to be explained. And you're telling me that this is all being loomed up? This isn't real? Of course it isn't.
Well, there's a bit of a conflict in that looming. If you're going to have the land in the background looming, there's like a sine wave between you and the actual thing you're viewing. If you're going to claim that the turbines have dropped behind the curve of the Earth, but the land in the background hasn't, it's like, well, what do you mean? It's sort of looming around the curve and then dipping back down to show curve, and then looming the stuff through that in your vision. It's just like, no, none of this works.
This is where Arwen's philosophy-based theory comes into it, because there is a point where things appear to vanish, and the turbines maybe going. Do you know what? If the light's bending up a little bit where those turbines are, it's going to cut off the bottom, because we're not going to see the bits at the bottom. But then it starts to bend back down again because of refraction. We know that refraction is negligible. It'll bend up a little bit. It'll bend down a little bit. That would make more sense to me than it would. It's basically applying Skunk Bay. if we apply the skunk bay footage to what we see there, that makes more sense to me than anything. It's nonsense about stuff being loomed back up from behind a curve. Well, even if that is true, you've still got to prove that there's a curve for it to loom back up from behind in any event. So it's still subject to proving that there's a curve. Just because you can explain it with maths doesn't mean that it's true.
We've got about half an hour left. Hope you enjoyed the tail end of yesterday's debate on the first part of this one. If you'd like to join the discussion, be sure to mute the watch page you are currently watching and then click the link in the info box below the video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. Please don't swear if you do join, and if you do, you'll be ejected. Please don't try to rejoin using stock accounts if you are ejected. If you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. As I say, there's about an hour and a half left on this live stream.
You did actually say that there was half an hour left, unless you dropped out at that magic moment.
Probably just my bunged up sounding voice. Struggling.
Rock Lover says, even Nathan has given up on Riley. Well, this isn't even my claim. Okay, this kind of observation is common. Tops of the mountains are close to the horizon. Bit of a hint there. They're not mountains though, Al. They're like elevated land. They don't satisfy the definition of mountains because they're not big enough. Ute, these vids are so good it looks fake. Riley, pay the £1,000 and honorably get off YouTube. Pay the £1,000 and honorably get off of YouTube. What are you talking about, dude? Ranty's made one mistake, so the Earth must be a moving sphere.
I mean, I asked you this last night because I was, saying, has anyone debunked Ranty's Welsh mountains yet? And you were like, no. So, what's the score? Why is it that we've had one guy come on, claim that Ranty's misidentified all of the land? We've pointed out that he hasn't, shown that it should be all behind the curve of the Earth, and now we're on Puffin Island. It makes no sense. It's like, hang on, what about all these Welsh mountains that are long gone behind the curve of the Earth? Isn't anybody going to even attempt to debunk that?
No one's attempted it. They won't touch it because it's that far away, and everyone knows that it's that far behind the curve of the Earth that basically they can't answer it. They can't actually debunk it.
If that's the case, I mean, I think it's probably well worth Ranty doing like a little, maybe 10-minute video, breaking it down for anybody, because it's been done on a Hangout. Initially, he's shown his observations, the first 5 things on his camera, and he's pointed out to the audience what's in them, i.e. the oil rig, the wind farms, the land in the background, and then immediately the oil rig has been put into a different position. Well, unfortunately, that's still not the end of the claim. Yes, bits of it have been misidentified in the same way Puffin Island has, but that, as I said earlier, is kind of the reason for putting it out on a platform like this, so you can say, well, I think I've scrutinised it well, you tell me where I've gone wrong, and that's pretty much what's happened. But it doesn't change the fact that the stuff's long gone behind the curve of the Earth in the background, which kind of makes sense. The furthest stuff away would be the most difficult to bring back from behind a curve. But that's the situation we're in. So, maybe it's another one where you can put it out there and say, look, here's the pier, here's the wind farms in the mid-ground, and here's these mountains just poking through a little tiny sliver, tiny little wedge shape. You've got a very narrow field of view between those two things. Therefore, what else can it possibly be? Well, it can't be anything else. You're really limited in terms of what it could be. So you're left with these mountains that are long gone.
Yeah. And the beauty of this one is that the guy that made that original video on the Anglesey claim, he hasn't even put it forward for discussion. It was put forward by a baller, which is even better.
Yeah, I think his reason for doing so was because you've got these wind farms that are suffering a refractive effect, and they're looking like they're dipping behind the curve. And when he brought it up yesterday, it's like, well, the curve's exponential. It's getting more curvy beyond that point. Yet there's the land. No response.
Yeah, no response. in the side chat, if you're looking in the main chat, T-Bone says Oakley hates Riley. Just sounds like it's Paul Voigt, that, doesn't it, on a soccer account?
I gave up years ago trying to guess who's whose sock. It's like
Should
people
be
say
getting
that all
some
the time. People
deliveries
say you and
today.
I have fallen out, or I've given up on you, and it's like, I'll say this. I've said it before, but you're under absolutely no obligation. Correct that. Tell the audience, I'm not twisting your arm to be here. You join of your own volition. Tomorrow you might not join. I don't know, but that's not to say that I don't endorse the stuff you do. When it's good, obviously I'm going to endorse it. When it's bad, I'm going to point out that it's bad. But it doesn't change the fact that we have Skype calls afterwards and keep in touch, and I'd consider you a mate. Doesn't make any difference.
I know, but to be fair, that was actually a straw man argument, because the argument, the assertion wasn't that I'm required to join. The assertion was that Oakley hates Riley. Well, if that was the case, then we wouldn't speak out privately off air, but we have hour-long conversations with other flat earthers about topics that you guys could only dream about because it doesn't fit in with your schema. You guys can't possibly imagine what it's supposed to be like if the Earth's actually flat. You struggle with it being a ball. But we talk about things, well, actually, it's worth talking about that star point yesterday when Ruhif came in talking about the stars. I'm going to share my screen again on this one because let me get rid of some windows here that I don't need because I had too many windows open. Here we go. Now I'm going to argue from a different perspective on this one. I'll keep that one. Right, so if I share my screen, share screen, share that. Right, so yesterday, Ruhif came in and he made a trigonometry point, which I actually agree with him on. He said that basically, if you calculate, if you do the trig on the North Star being directly above your head at the North Pole, then when you go down to 45 degrees, the distance that you travel when you get to that 45 degrees if the Earth were flat is something like 12,000 miles. No, wasn't it? I think it was 25,000 miles, which was greater than the circumference of the Earth. And you've only gone down to 45 degrees. And I agree with that point. And I was like, I've never thought of that. What's the answer to that? So I'll be honest, I couldn't think of what the explanation was. I was thinking, right, what is the explanation for that question? Because that is a really strong thing for me to consider. And then basically, there's a video and it shows the effect of stellar aberration on light with the atmosphere. And what we can see is basically it's a refraction argument. And what we can see is where you think that the star or the light is not consistent with where it actually is because of the effects of refraction. And I was like, surely it's not the case that refraction is the issue. So basically what I'm saying is this is without the atmosphere and this is with the atmosphere. And so what the point was is that that basically at 45 degrees with the atmosphere, well, mind you, you'd have to get it. So without the atmosphere, it'd be 45. So we'd get it to where it is there. So with the atmosphere, it's 45 degrees. But actually, the reading that you're really reading is 55 or some kind of sliding variant. So the point is, as you get closer to, I'd have to play this in reverse, but if you get closer towards above your head, which is getting towards the 90, it starts to get more accurate. And people say that the only place where there is zero or next to no refraction is where it's immediately above your head. But the closer to the horizon you get, you can see that there can be 10, 15, 20, 25 degrees out because of the effects of refraction from space, what they call space. Now, I said, well, isn't that just a convenient argument to explain this problem on the trig? And he said, well, isn't it a convenient argument that refraction explains why things seem to be flat? And I was like, yeah. So the point was, if refraction is going to bring stuff back from behind the curve of the Earth magically and make it look flat, then we can then use and we can co-opt the same refraction and claim that stars are not where you see them at, or suns or whatever. And I'm like, is that not like making science up? And he said, do you think that the refraction is making science up? And I'm like, absolutely. So now my position is, well, okay, this is what we're claiming is really happening. You guys go and prove that it's wrong. So essentially, when you're reading things that are close to the horizon, because of the effects of refraction, and we know that light bends up as well as down, not just down, you have absolutely no idea where that it really is in the sky. So the point is that when Ruhif was saying that these lights need to be at 45 degrees, which is kind of there, With oh no, I've got it wrong. So it's the next one. So it's kind of the so 45 degrees. Actually, you're actually not seeing the thing that you think you're seeing because of the effects of refraction. It's bending the light away from you, and it's giving you a distorted perception of what you think is 45%. It's nearer to 54%. So, and I was like, that's fantastic. So his point that he made yesterday about the trig, it fails because we're not seeing the thing. If you're going to argue that we're seeing mirages and looming up light, then I'm going to argue back that you're not seeing what you think you're seeing at 45 degrees. Prove that it's wrong. Because if you prove that it's wrong, then it means that, unfortunately, you can't have it the other way. In other words, what we're seeing here is a mirage with the land. No, you can't have that, because if you can prove this wrong, then you also prove your own nonsense wrong. So, essentially, this is checkmate kind of thing. We've just equaled you, and you can't prove the science, and neither can we. It now becomes moot because we've made up our own science that may or may not be true. You can't prove it's true. We can't prove it's true. You can't prove it's not. Neither can we. This is what we're saying is the explanation for the stars, and I'm totally fine with that.
While that might be true from a debating point of view, it's not true from a reality point of view. And that is to say that during the debate, you'll have a glober who will say, well, so you're saying refraction? I thought you guys, in quotes, deny refraction. It's like, no, of course we don't deny refraction. We deny that your version of refraction is bringing things back from behind a curve that we don't see. That's the specific part of your claim of refraction that we deny. We don't deny that refraction exists because it's clearly evidenced in almost every image you'll ever see that's taken with a long lens. So therefore, refraction is very much a thing, and we're trying to get to the bottom of what it actually is and how it actually affects optics, as opposed to just co-opting it without any evidence whatsoever and saying that it's bending things back from behind a curve when there's a tricky photograph to overcome. You just apply these mathematics regardless of whether or not there's ever any evidence. Whereas we're doing the opposite. We're looking at the actual evidence of refraction and trying to figure out how it affects the things that we see. And the effects of refraction are never going to be denied, certainly not by me. I don't deny refraction. Yes, light can change direction when passing through a different medium or a density gradient. That's going to happen. You know, we see it in the photographs. It's negligible, but it does happen. And as it becomes less negligible, it does cut the bottoms of things off. But there seems to be an effect of your actual viewer observation height. So the altitude that you take the picture from seems to have an effect at the angle of attack on the thing that you're looking at, and will vary. And I've seen this with my own eyes at St Bees. You know, we walked along the full ridgeline, Spurs Schemo, Anthony and myself, from the highest elevation position all the way down. And all I was doing the entire time was making sure I didn't die, you know, watching my feet, but then looking back up towards the Isle of Man and seeing what happens with the refractive band. And to be perfectly honest, virtually nothing happened till we got down to about 10 feet above where you can see the tops of the caravans. And at that point, within 3 feet, you could watch the refraction underneath the island grow, and then you walk back up and it went, and then you walk back down and it came again. In other words, there seems to be a very particular point where you can see the refraction grow as you decrease in altitude, and the two things are tied. The same applies when looking at Morgord Lighthouse. So you've got Anthony taking his observation, and then several months later, in totally different conditions, also a clear day, and Ranty takes the same image, and it looks virtually, but for a pixel or two, identical. And yes, you've still got slightly differing effects that are going on around it, but the actual physical position on the photograph is the same, which tells me that the effects of the atmosphere do have another effect on top of that, you know, beyond your actual elevation position in terms of what's going to be invisible below your feet. You know, you've got a very limited span of distance when you angle your vision down, and an infinite amount of distance potentially looking up. So therefore you do have things obscured that are below you, depending on how high you are up. And that's negated when you get to a certain altitude. And I think in the case of Morgord Lighthouse, this again has been demonstrated by our friends on the other side of the argument, where they've shown that you go up to the top of a high hill and then try and film Morgord Lighthouse, and you can essentially see all the way down to the beach without any refraction blocking your view. But the further you look, the more that angle gets more and more and more obtuse, and therefore the closer to the refraction band, which is on the horizontal, that you end up seeing. So when you're looking at, say, I don't know, 10 feet, you're looking at a very severe angle, and then when you look out at 10 miles, it's obviously almost horizontal. So you know, it's subtle differences that we're talking about. And again, this is demonstrated, or was demonstrated yesterday by Ranty, when he shows that the pier that's about 30 feet high, he's on the beach. Obviously, the midpoint of that is going to be higher than he is. It's going to be approximately 15 feet. Therefore, the thing in the background that lines up with him is most definitely higher than he is. So you've got this sort of infinite amount that you can look up, which is where these long distance land observations, where they are high but at a greater distance on a clear day, you get to see them nice and clearly, not dropping behind any curvature, and your vision is much better when looking up than looking down. And I think it is for this reason that a lot of the globeheads like Slice Barcane demand that we get our equipment onto the beach. And yes, Ranty's done really well with this particular observation, but it's still obvious. We called it the crocodile, and we're pretty certain that's the same oil rig as in the other, from the other angle. But you can see how severely it's affected by the refractive band when you look at those images, because they're taken from the beach, and he's looking directly, you know, out horizontally, and he's being affected by this limitation in terms of what he can see in a down angle. But it doesn't affect the Welsh mountains. They're nice and clear. So happy days. But going forward, I would say to people who want more detail in their picture, you know, for Anthony, for example, if he was to repeat the observation of the Morgord Lighthouse and wanted to get slightly more of it, he'd have to go up a ladder. You know, he'd have to take a 10-foot ladder to the top of the 81 or whatever foot we measured high peak or high point, and he'd get more. He'd get slightly higher above that refraction band, and he would see more of the lighthouse. That's just the way it works. You know, unfortunately, he's out of elevation there, so that chances are he's not going to be standing on any step ladders at the top of that cliff, because it's pretty precarious. But you get my point. You know, there is a limitation in terms of how much you can see when looking down. The down angle is going to be lobbed off, and that's going to be based purely on the altitude of the observer at the observation position. So yeah, interesting stuff. But we're, to round out this point, we're trying to get to the nitty-gritty detail of what actually does happen, not just trying to account for things that we shouldn't see because they don't work on our model. You know, that's the globe approach. We would like, or I would certainly like to know how things actually work, what reality really is. And again, frustrating though it was yesterday with that chap, because he's saying, I don't care what the stars are. It doesn't matter if they're being projected from behind me onto a screen in front of me. I can still measure the light. The light's still there. So that to me is frustrating, because it means nothing. It's totally insignificant if you don't know the origin. If you don't know the source, then it's nothing. It means sod all. I was hearing you peppering your mic mute button. I assumed you wanted to jump in there.
No, I'm just on the phone. Give me 2 secs.
No worries. So yeah, the intangible objects in the sky. Yeah, it sounds to me like Anthony's just going to twist their argument round. And for me, it's like, no, I don't know what these things are. So they hold very little meaning to me at the moment. And while people show me their investigations into it, and it's a subject that used to hold fascination, you know, I own a telescope, I've looked at the stars, you know, when I was out on the road, I would always be staring up at the night sky when it was clear. When I do my deliveries, I look out in the rural areas, and it's fantastically clear and is beautiful, and I will discuss it with customers, you know, because it's fantastic. But does it hold any relevance to me in my quest to find out the shape of the ground beneath my feet? No, not really, if I'm honest. For some people, it's, you know, their proof they live on a sphere. Good for you.
Even though you've very brilliantly articulated your position with regards to what we were just talking about with the refraction, whilst I agree, I do actually want to find out the shape of the ground that we walk on. I also think that if these people that are on the ball Earth side will negligently, recklessly, and dishonestly quote that refraction can bend around the curve of an Earth, in my opinion, it's totally fair that we can do the same thing when it suits. So if you guys are going to argue that non-standard and standard refraction can bend light so far that we can see things that now appear to be flat, then guess what? When it comes to the stellar aberration of light, I'm going to argue the same point back, because no one can prove that it is or is not curved. It appears to be flat. We can prove that it's flat. Now, we can prove that there is elements at times when there are things that are being hidden at times, And that would be simply the effects of refraction, but not the refraction that you guys argue, bending around the curve of the Earth. It's the refraction that we see, that we can demonstrate, that we can show, which of course is the refraction at Skunk Bay. It stretches and it shrinks. And that can make things be obscured or obstructed if it shrinks it and it makes it squashed on the horizon. And there's a little bit of mirage at the very bottom that blocks it all out. Sure, that would be what you guys would argue is the curvature of the Earth. But for me, that's the effects of Skunk Bay with a little bit of refraction blocking out the horizon, which Sly Sparkane claimed that it was the inverted mirage that appears to the observer as obstruction, which we now formally refer to it as what used to be the obstruction formerly known as curvature. But with regards to the stars, if you guys are going to argue that the light bends around the shape of the Earth, then I'm going to argue that the stars are subject to that same refraction and they're not really where you think they are. From just purely from a debate point of view.
Far easier to prove that the land is physically where it is and has been surveyed as flat to begin with, because we can go and check it. Stars, totally different story. No one's going to them. No one's checking what they are. Maybe someone knows what they are. Maybe someone's got empirical proof of what they are, but I haven't got that. You haven't got that. No glober that I've been chatting to has got that either. You know, they've got their observations from their telescope and they've got the information given to them by NASA. That's where it ends.
Alk claims that I'm lying about Sly. Let me just be very, very clear on how I represent what Sly said. I asked Sly to explain what was the current science for the floaty land at the north of Isle of Man. And his answer was, quote, and I'm quoting him, quote, it's an inverted mirage that appears to the observer as obstruction, unquote. That was what he actually said, right? That is his words, and that is what we see. Sly's currently in chat. I guess you still don't want to accept you humorously misquote me. Right, do I have to pull it up on screen to show everybody what you actually said? Give me a minute,
do it.
I'll find it.
I don't mind pointing out that Sly didn't also understand that the entire island is looming and said he'd have to go away and check the figures. So he doesn't. I'm just
trying to remember where that it was. Wasn't it on one of your previous debates? I should have screenshot this because it's going to end up being one of those comments that's important.
Ah, sure, it's obtainable now. It's been broadcast live. May not be obtainable quickly, but nevertheless.
You have to give me a minute while I go back and find it.
So Sly's in the chat. Hey Sly, did you check the maths, buddy? You realise it's all looming now?
Where was? Do you remember where that was, Nath? I know it was a while ago now.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan.
Oh.
That was weird. Just had a really weird streaming glitch. Sorry about the technical issues. If you're getting any in the stream, I'm seeing the same thing happen on my screen. I don't know why.
What are you seeing happen?
Just on the, what's it called, the live dashboard, it's saying stream ended, and then there'll be a little whirly whirl, and then it'll say stream resumed, but it doesn't seem to be dropping any. Well, it's dropped a couple of frames, 47 frames, which is nothing. Weird. Well, it's all seems to be running now anyway.
Yeah, it does do that periodically. I'm just trying to find where Sly's actual line was. Do you remember where it was, Nath?
No, you've got to be joking. 158 shows.
Listen to you.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your... That's probably one of them. That sounds likely. That's definitely me.
Yeah, that is definitely you, but there's a few here, so I'm working my way back through. Sly, why don't you come on and tell us all how I'm misquoting you? You can tell us what you actually said while I'm looking for it. Maybe I saved it to my desktop. Let's have a little look.
It's the one with Judas Rumpus on it, where he denies his own model 3 times until I put him on the spot, and then he has to concede that the whole bloody thing's looming, while Sly's that's sort of on the chat at the same exact moment, very quickly sloped away. Good episode, that one. I enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah, that was the one where Sly left because you bullied him.
Yeah.
And he couldn't take.
You'll have to run the numbers. Priceless. Happy to educate you on your own model any day of the week, Sly. Feel free to join. Links in the info box. Be sure to mute your watch page before you join.
Smash the super chat if you don't feel like joining.
Yeah, if you feel like paying me for educating you, Sly, hit that super chat, my friend. I don't mind educating you.
Right, so it was 150 something. It wasn't 140 something. So it's not 151.
Round there, curved earth. Do you reckon?
Let's try 152. I find it quite ironic that a lot of these people have names that are, for example, Red's rhetoric. Red usually means danger, dangerous rhetoric. Sly, as in dodgy. Sparkane, wherever Sparkane comes from. You got Rumpus, which basically means an argument. All these are not like the negative toned names, aren't they? They're not legit names. Not inviting names.
They're faceless potatoes, for
the
most part. Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you want... People seem to want to dox the other side, though. I get Flat Earthers sending me various, like, Facebook links for people and things that are on the globe side. And it's like, I'm not in any... I have absolutely no desire to dox anybody for any reason. You know, what's the point? If people want their anonymity... Can't really say that with a cold. If people want their anonymity online, then they're welcome to it.
It's funny that Sean Hufford thinks that I'm actually interested in him enough that I would, quote, dox him if I had the chance to. Yet he doesn't think that if I was really that interested that I couldn't find him. I mean, the guy works in a prominent store in a particular part of a particular state in America. If I really wanted to, I could actually locate the guy if I really wanted to. Can I be bothered making the effort? No. Am I interested in? No. Yet he thinks I am somehow. And he uses it as the justification for not proving any evidence whatsoever that he was having any negotiations with a judge in an ex parte hearing about extraditing me to America.
Yeah, P. Mars was saying something similar. He said that he was in Discord and somebody had doxed him so they could sue him. And you're like, oh, this is pathetic. Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley.
I'm on 153. No, so it must be 154.
I'll say hello to a few people that scroll by in the chat. Hey, Gem Panda. Sly, we've already said hello to you. Horse wearing people costume. Good to see you. Rune Thornton. Hi, how's it going? Ron Burgundy. Good to see you. Was. Do you lot believe space is real? Space, as we have been presented, is not real, in my view, was.
I'm just reading a comment on the Flat Earth Debate 154, and it's from Dim Osman, and it says, Nathan using sock accounts to like his own videos to try and counter the actual perception of this farce. So because of that, I'm going to give that video a like. 25 likes down against 22 dislikes.
I haven't got any sock accounts.
Pardon?
I have 0 sock accounts. I have 3 working accounts. So currently, this to make this Hangout porn-proof, this is being run by my oldest account, which is 10 years old, called Oakley Cord. The actual stream runs from my backup channel, which is called Nathan Oakley, and then my main channel is Nathan Oakley 1980. I think the minimum views I have on any of those is 300,000 views. So if you want to call a 10-year-old historic account with 300,000+ views a sock account, then you're welcome to call it that, but it's not. I don't have sock accounts. I never have had sock accounts. I've got working channels.
I can't find the Sly Sparkane quote. But I haven't misquoted you, Sly. I've quoted it exactly the way you said it. You said it was an inverted mirage on the horizon that appears to the observer as obstruction. They were your words. Not like Sean. I don't misquote you.
That's Chris, isn't it?
Hello, Nathan.
Yeah.
Hello, Anthony.
Yeah,
Big
Hello.
With your grandparents from Scotland.
Yeah. I don't know. Chris seems to think that by apologising for being a total turd that he can just keep joining the show, you know. No.
Well,
I'd rather have nobody.
yeah, we can just sit here throwing insults at people that deserve insulting. Sly knows it's not a ball, by the way. For anybody in chat that's not sure, that thinks Sly's a ball earther, he's not. He knows it's not a ball. He's got cat.
Trying to trigger Sly? Is that what you're trying to do? Get him on by triggering him? Fair enough.
Don't spoil it. I was trolling Sean with his laser level, and I was hoping he'd disassemble it for me, and he didn't.
Right. That wasn't trolling. You genuinely thought it was. The laser was irrelevant to the actual measuring equipment.
No, I did genuinely think that, but there are better ways that you can disable the laser, like with a piece of paper over the front of it. You didn't have to take it out. Well, I was hoping he would do it, but he didn't. I can't find which hangout it was in, Nath. I need to find that.
It'll be there somewhere.
Oh, it might be on the other channel, though, mightn't it? Yes, it'll be on the 1980 channel. That's why I can't find it. The original one.
They're on both. It wouldn't make any difference.
Yeah, but the comment will only be on one of them, won't it? So let's try.
The same streaming weirdness.
So, is there any ballers out there that may have evidence to prove the shape of the Earth? I mean, you can talk about the celestial sphere if you want. You know, the thing that you can't prove. That is ball-shaped, that you can't prove.
I was really hoping Ranty would join. I was really hoping we could go through his mountains again. You know, if it's undebunked, I want to shove it right in their faces.
I don't know where Ranty is. I heard from him earlier on. He said he was going to work, but then he rang back and said that he wasn't going to work because he wasn't well enough.
I mean, I dropped him a line yesterday, said, can I have that link to the Google Drive? Because it's still not in the description box of yesterday's video. So, you know, I'm on the video saying, yeah, I'll put a link to this in the description box. And he hasn't got back to me, so, you know, I'm blaming him. You want to moan at me for there being no Google Plus Drive for that image? That's Ranty.
Put it in the link box saying that Ranty hasn't given me the link, so I'm blaming Ranty, and that might make him spare him on if he knows it's there.
He must have something important to do because he's normally really slick with those things. So, you know, he's just busy. I'm not going to be too hard on him. I'm sure he's just got stuff on his plate. You know, he's a busy guy.
Welcome.
That's definitely me.
Yep. So it's not 152. 151. The afterlife now. That might have been it, mightn't it? When the afterlife gave you this thingy. A super chat.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate.
Oh my God.
I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this...
No, it's not there either.
All right.
Hello, Chris.
About an hour left. Could do a link, I suppose, while you're searching for that. Hope you're enjoying the debate thus far. Let's put my light on.
151.
Not quite with it. Not quite organised at all. If you're new to the channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a link in the info box below this video. Where the hell am I? And yes, there is a super chat that runs alongside this video and a link in the info box once the video has rendered. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you're currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. There are a couple of rules. Number one, please don't swear. If you do, I'll eject you. And if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show, as sharing the show increases the chances of a more diverse panel by increasing the live audience. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the show or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. There is approximately 1 hour left on this live stream.
What show number are we on now, Nath?
158.
Welcome
Okay, so it's
to
about
the
here.
Flat Earth debate.
Getting bored looking for these now. Am I on the right bloody channel? Yes.
Man, you're really determined to prove this. It's already been done once. You literally had his comment up on screen with him there. And he was like, yeah, you're taking it out of context. Look at the last paragraph where I tell you to get on the beach and do all your observations from really low down. It's like, yeah, but that doesn't change the fact that you've actually highlighted what the obstruction formerly known as curvature is in your view.
It wasn't a week. It wasn't a week ago, was it? Maybe it was.
Nobody's sniping you, Chris. I'm removing you from the channel. That's me.
Sly, perhaps you could tell us when you were last bullied. It would help if we knew when you were last bullied.
Who are you talking to?
He's still in chat, isn't he, Sly? I think.
Oh, has he got hold of one of my victim cards?
Well,
Must have got it from Lottie. I've been giving them out a bit too generously.
158765. It's going to be around about 55, isn't it? I can't find it, but I'm pretty certain that I'm quoting him exactly the way he said it. I'm not doing what Sean does, which is saying something similar but changing keywords, changing the order in which they were said, changing the circumstances around what was said to make it sound that it means different. I'm not doing that. I asked him a point-blank question, and he gave me a point-blank answer. He didn't do what Rumpus does, which was tell me all about refraction for 25 minutes. He just gave me the answer. And I'm reading it exactly the way he gave it. Because I'll be remembering that answer he gave me for a long time, and I'll be citing it often. And he can constantly tell people that I've misquoted him, and I'll constantly remind people that they were the actual words that he said. And if I have to go through all the Hangouts to find the bloody thing, I will find it. Oh, by the way, did Globebusters ever do that? Do you remember when they did the high elevation balloon thing and it got kidnapped? The balloon thing got kidnapped. They were testing whether or not stars could be seen at high elevations. Did they ever do that? Do you know whether they did that in the end?
I know they did the first one when ODD was present. What happened after that, I don't know. I've not kept up with that. Not to my knowledge. I don't think they did a second launch. They might have done. But as I say, I don't keep up.
I can't find that comment. He's probably deleted it because he's a worm. Because he's a weasel.
I won't deny I was very interested in that, though.
Yeah.
I was the first person to donate to that balloon because I was like, I really, really want... Well, maybe I wasn't the first, but certainly one of the first to actually, donate to it because I was very intrigued to see exactly that. Will we actually see what's going on as the balloon goes up? Will we see those lights disappear or not? I've had this conversation quite extensively with Patricia as well because we've both done quite a lot of international travel. How you doing, Beefeater?
Hello.
Good to have you. How you doing?
Not too bad.
What can we do for you?
Well, I was thinking right, so you say that satellites don't exist because that would kill it, wouldn't it? Let's just agree on that first. That would kill it, the ideas about the flat Earth. It'd be hard to stand up if we could prove that satellites exist.
No, we're happy that satellites exist at least in the form of hot air balloons. But you'd have to show that the satellites are actually in space. That's the bit that we have the problem with.
Well, yeah, okay. So I think we can do that. There's an experiment I've been thinking of for a long time, and it's difficult to do because I haven't got the equipment. I think it would require someone who lives in a certain village or town or in the city where the structures of the buildings around them can be, used to block line of sight, right? Because I'm assuming you're going to argue that it's ground-based GPS. But yeah, GPS is what I'm talking about. Satellites and GPS. Okay, this is the thing. Yeah. So you're saying that it's ground-based GPS? Would that be the case?
Yeah, they use well, what's the form of radar that they use?
I'm not too sure. I've read about it a while back, but I can't remember the exact way. But it's basically microwave, isn't it?
Lorenz.
Yeah. What did you say?
Lorenz.
It's micro.
Lorenz. Yes. They're using the GPS. They're using ping data from the cell phone towers on a bandwidth that doesn't require a load of bandwidth, but it allows you to get signal from a distance away because it's only using ping data. It's tiny amounts, so it can use like the lower frequencies to go further than what high frequency stuff does.
Yeah, of course.
For data and for radio.
So right, okay. So what makes you think that exactly? Because do you know much about how GPS works on a handheld device?
Yeah, I've driven trucks over the years, and I realised that trucks don't work when you're in rural areas for no apparent reason. When you've got nothing obstructing your line of sight, and when you turn it on, it can't get an activation from any satellites. When you eventually do get one, it takes like 2 or 3 more minutes before you get 2 or 3. Yet you've got a clear line of sight to the sky, and there's absolutely no reason whatsoever for you not to get a signal.
Same happens in cities. I found that when I was a rep. So you'd go into a big city like London, and you've got lots of tall buildings obscuring your horizontal line of sight, but absolutely nothing obscuring your view of the sky. And yet, what do you know? You can't get any satellites to lock onto your location.
And was you in a vehicle when that was happening? Because it could be the vehicle.
Yeah, but it works for the rest of the time when you get towards the, like...
Imagine like the windscreen, it might penetrate that easier than the...
I was just about to say, but when that's happened, I've literally leant out the window and given the thing a clear line of sight, held it out the window.
That'd be one experiment to do, yeah? That'd be one experiment to do. You could experiment with that, because I understand what you're saying, and I'm not saying you're lying, it could happen. I haven't used GPS out on the road at all, really. I use it, I do work with GPS I'm a software developer, but I've never experienced that while going long distance, But the thing is about like handheld devices, yeah, they have like 2 ways of actually resolving a GPS coordinate. You can use the satellites, which is called coarse triangulation.
All right, are you there?
Hey.
Can you still hear me?
He did say hello.
Yeah, sorry, we just had to speak over you while someone joined. That's okay. Go on, carry on.
Yeah, so you've got the coarse location resolution, which basically uses the satellites, several satellites to triangulate the position. That's much more accurate than the second way of doing it, which is using, as you said, using cell site information, which is what it's on a different layer of hardware completely in the device. Yeah, it's using the radio on the device rather than actually being a passive receiver of the beacons from the satellites, and we can actually choose which one we want to use at runtime when we're programming. So we can say at runtime, check for this. If it's, we can determine which one to use, and that's no accident. That has been well thought out. So I'm just thinking, if you're saying that it's coming from the cell site all of the time, right? Then the people who write the layer for say for example Google, they would have to be in on it. They would have to know that, because they're sending the data, and it's difficult to fluke that, let's say, right? It's very difficult for that to be a coincidence. Okay.
So Google, you can't possibly be suggesting that the people who give us Google Earth would be in on any sort of deception about the Earth shape. No way. You can't possibly assert that.
Well, no, but it goes down to the vendors as well. Like the vendors, sometimes they put like funky stuff in the ROM or they'll tweak the elements of the SDK in order to do it what they want proprietarily, if that's a word. Yeah.
Right. Here's a test for you. Ring any of the reps from TomTom Go. They'll speak to you freely, because TomTom Go have a really big sat-nav company, right? And the reps will speak to you freely. Ask any rep, have they ever seen any of the satellites that are meant to be up there? And the answer is, I've seen pictures.
What do you mean by see them? Yeah, but no one's going to see them, are they? These are private, companies who've launched this tackle. And
when you ask them that question, they'll say, "I've seen pictures," and then you say to them, "Were they real or were they composite pictures?" Yeah. And they'll say that they were automated.
But it's trade secrets.
How big are these things compared to, say, a car? I mean, how big is a satellite, communication satellite, GPS satellite?
Yeah,
how big is it?
To my knowledge, about the size of a car. And
so like the size of a Tesla,
flares.
for the sake of argument, size of a Tesla Roadster, maybe. Ever seen one of them in space?
And there's so much.
I only know as much as you on that. Even though I can like work with GPS, like I say.
So what you're saying is these satellites are about the size of a car, and I'm saying about the size of a Tesla Roadster. Have you ever seen a Tesla Roadster in space?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I can sympathise with that. Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. You know, it's difficult for me to falsify what you're saying. This is the thing. I can't falsify it. All I know is that when I'm like writing programs, I can choose which layer I want to operate on, and that's not a fluke. And okay, so if you're not going to accept that, I accept that, right? But this is an experiment. I can't do the experiment as I was explaining earlier. I kind of derailed myself and went on a different tangent. But imagine you could block out the line of sight to these purported ground-based transmitters, right? Between two buildings, or you could use steel. You know, you could be on the side of one big structure, and you know that it's over that side, so you can block the line of sight.
Hey, Fireball,
then
can you hear us? Can you hear us, Fireball? Hello?
Nathan, Fireball was the guy that sniped everybody yesterday. I've just removed him on that basis.
I've got rid of him too. Happy days.
But, you know, it is a little incredible that, you know...
Let me just finish. Okay, go on. Yes, sorry.
I was just going to say it is a little incredible that, you know, everybody at Google will be on it, but maybe not at that level. I mean, with the level of compartmentalization, even in the government and even at these corporations, it's not necessarily that everybody's in on a big, you know, conspiracy. It's just that they just don't know. You know, they don't see how things happen in this department, and how everything comes together. They suspect, but they probably don't have the full-on proof where they can go up in a shuttle and go up and touch the dome, or go up in there and say, hey, we can or can't get to space without crashing. That's what basically would be, you know, more plausible, that there's just so much compartmentalization. No one can quite confirm. And the people that confirm, you know, they're not going to say anything. So that's probably what it is. You know, you're getting flat measurements off of probably a flat plane that are being glommed on to a globe model. And that's where the deception is coming in.
Hey, Owen,
they're getting
really
flat readings and glomming them onto round mathematical models to make it fit with this paradigm. And they probably don't even know why they're doing it themselves. And with so much compartmentalization, they don't know. They're just, you know, doing complying with orders. And the people that go off the record probably risk, you know, a censure, losing their jobs and things like that. So people are going to shut up.
That would be plausible if it was all one company or organization who was creating the hardware for.
Google has a lot of power. You know, they have a lot of power.
There's too many, man. Like, you think about that, these Chinese guys, they can make a fake iPhone. Where do you reckon they're getting the innards of them devices from? They're just made in some garage somewhere, but it's all understood. The technology is understood, and as it gets smaller, the components, it just becomes smaller. But there's no way. Like I was saying, if you were trying to triangulate the device's location, resolve the device's location based on GPS, then that's completely different to resolving it based on ground-based transmitters. It's completely different. And if there was one guy making all of them sensors for all of the devices that are out there in a room, and you had to buy it off that one guy, it would be possible. But it's not possible because there's tons and tons of companies who are in the business of making these sensors and hardware, and there's no way it could possibly happen. But let me get back to my point, because that's difficult for me to explain.
Before you do, though,
it's non-tangible.
Just want to say a quick hello to our new guest. Just bear with me a second. Hey, Jazzconda, can you say a quick hello?
Yeah, good day, Nathan. How are you?
Good to have you.
Imagine you could like stand on a field, yeah? You could stand on a field and you could be inside a pipe, right? A steel pipe. Yeah, you're not going to get any reception from anywhere except from directly above your head at the top of the pipe, look into the sky. Now, what you do is you make that pipe, the width, the girth of it in such a way that you can point it at a satellite, one of these purported satellites, yeah, its location, and then see if you're getting a GPS coordinate.
Right,
then,
but let's say
it can't be anything from the side.
But you can bounce signals off the dome. That's not going to be conclusive. We need to see a physical satellite orbiting the planet.
Hang on. Let's say that you do get the signal, Beefeater. What does that prove?
It means that the signal is coming from directly above rather than to the side of it, or from the horizon or such.
Where's it coming from above?
You, Ranty?
From the satellite.
Hello, can you hear us?
Which is actually
hold on 1 second, guys. Hold on. Is that you, Ranty?
It is, yeah.
We've also got Arwin. How you doing, Arwin?
Hi, Nathan.
Good to have you both.
Yeah, it comes from over your head, from the top of the pipe that you're looking up to the sky, and it's the only way that the
Right, but does it prove that it's coming from a tin can in space that's orbiting Earth?
Well, no, it doesn't prove that, but it proves from which location it's coming, and then you use your common sense and you say, oh, it must be something that's up there, and they're saying they put it there, and they're saying they understand exactly how it works, the technology. Someone paid to put that there.
How you doing, B?
So
but it doesn't prove that, though. Is it not more? Is it equally?
It's the most simple explanation for the signal coming ahead. What would your explanation?
Can you explain?
I'm intrigued. What would your explanation be?
Right, hang on.
Well,
So you know,
I have a weird question about satellites. If you're supposed to aim that tube directly to this satellite hanging over there, then how come the satellite just doesn't fall down if it's not basically orbiting? It doesn't sound like it's orbiting, really. If it's just hanging there.
We need to look into this because this is where you should be putting your efforts in, my opinion, not sightings of different islands and stuff on the water. You should be doing it from ahead, overhead.
And that's why you have all this compartmentalization, because flat Earth does away with all that. If there's no gravity, you can't put a satellite in space to orbit around the Earth without a rocket or a solar-powered electric generator of some sort. The whole thing falls down. That's why you have to have all this compartmentalization, so they don't know, that A leads to B leads to C, and just tears the whole thing down.
Could I just ask a question that requires a yes or a no answer to Beefeater? Beefeater, do you think that, and I don't want to create a tangent at this point, I just want to ask the question and then leave from it, but do you think that 2 planes can cause 3 buildings to collapse?
God.
I think that is a very good question, and most people kind of know by this point that something went amiss, at least, or maybe someone dropped the ball, whether it was deliberately or not, I don't know. But yeah, there's a lot of unanswered questions. So I don't think 2 planes could knock down 3 buildings. No,
thank God for that. At least you're on the same wavelength in that respect. 2 planes can't cause 3 buildings to collapse. You need at least.
That's nothing to do with the shape of the Earth, right? That's absolutely
just a shithead test. That's all that is.
Well, it would show your level of logic, and your level of willingness to, take things to their rightful conclusions. Possibly, just saying.
It shows some level of critical thinking.
So let's go back to the steel pipe thing with the hole in the top and the signal that's coming into it. I asked you, do you think that if you did receive the signal, do you think that would prove that there is a satellite, a tin can in space sending you the signal? And you said, well, it'd be hard to disprove that, right? Is it not more likely, probable, and at least possible that all you're seeing is, all you're receiving is a reflected beam that's been dispersed, because as the beam gets further away from its source, it gets bigger?
No, you know yourself when you go in a basement, your mobile phone doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, correct. But you're not right. Okay, so, but answer the question though. Is it not at least possible, and in my position would be probable, that you're receiving a reflected beam source from somewhere else, and you're just getting the reflection of it that you think's coming from a satellite? That's
just an insane thought to comprehend, because where's it coming from? How many are there? Who's
somewhere ground based?
Yeah, where are they? Show me.
Hey, if a signal can be shut up,
show me in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. When I'm in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, I'll do that as well.
Give me a sec.
Yeah, there is technology like that. There is ground-based technology for GPS, but it doesn't help you get a signal when you're on open water, far out on the ocean. How are you going to do that?
Okay, so
we can do that. We can do that.
You could shoot it horizontally.
Are you familiar with Goonhilly satellite station?
No.
You should go and look at Goonhilly. It's down by Land's End, somewhere in. Let me see where it is. It's located on Goonhilly Downs near Helston on the Lizard Peninsula in Cornwall, England. You sound
I think
English,
I might have seen photos of that. Yeah, I think I've seen photos of it. Yeah.
What if those Goonhilly satellites are bouncing signals off some part of the atmosphere or the firmament itself, and all we're receiving is a reflected signal back from them?
Yeah, but you can't do that with GPS. Like, it needs to be coming from multiple places, and it needs to be accurate. You can't just bounce, say, "Oh yeah, it's all coming from over there in Goonhilly." They're just bouncing stuff around. It's just guessing. That's
only one. There are numerous satellite communication stations around the country, but you asked me to show you.
In order, no, if you know how things
Hello,
reflect,
Jack
yeah,
Ryan,
how
how are you
electron,
doing? Can you hear us?
how electromagnetic
Can you hear us,
Yeah.
Jack?
Jack Ryan.
waves. It talks about.
No,
Bye-bye,
sorry.
Jack
The rule is
Ryan.
when somebody new comes in, you've just got to shut up for a minute.
Okay, yeah.
And then let them
Yeah,
speak.
sorry.
Because
Sorry
otherwise
if
they tend to snipe everybody out and the hangout drops. Right,
Yeah,
but
I've got
the
rid of
point I
Jack
was
Ryan
making
anyway,
was that
so-
there are satellite communication stations around the country that are capable of bouncing signals all over the country for us all to get Sky TV, mobile phone, satellite station, satellite signals. Is that not more likely than a tin can orbiting the Earth that we know doesn't have a ball shape to it, that requires an orbit and
Not
people?
really.
All that
No,
kind of-
because but that what the thing is with that is, yeah. Have you actually looked at how a satellite goes into how you would orbit a planet?
Yeah, of course we
Think
have.
about that. You can. All right, imagine if the Earth was a ball. Yeah, just say accept it was a ball for a second. Imagine you're gonna fling something around it in orbit. It would work, wouldn't it? It would work if you send it fast enough. If you
But
give
the
it
thing
enough
is, at the
angular
beginning of that
momentum so that
statement,
it's
you said,
always
imagine.
falling.
Hold on 1 sec. So you said, imagine how it would work. Well,
Yeah.
we've got a car that's in space that we've been shown and told is real and is there, and they can film it, right? But yet we can't film one of
I
these
was being
satellites.
facetious from
So we just have
perspective
to
of-
hold on.
Yeah, with
We're just
no
left
stars,
with,
by the way.
We're just left with our imaginations.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm saying pretend because you think it's flat, yeah. So I'm saying just pretend that it's round for a minute, right? And now you've got the Earth there, this huge mass which is circular.
Pete,
Just
how you
say
doing?
it's circular. And if you were to throw something sideways enough, you see, this is the thing. Now we're going into gravity, and I know that you don't like gravity as well, so it's difficult for
I
me
have
to
no problem
falsify.
with gravity.
Nathan, are you there?
Yeah.
If no one would interject, if I could just ask questions on the last couple of questions, GPS 911, and the question I wanted to ask about gravity, because I've got to go, so it'll be really quick. If everyone's okay with that.
I'm cool with it. Go ahead.
To be honest, the 9/11 question wasn't to create a tangent, so probably not, to be honest. But go on.
No, we'll start with 9/11. Please don't cut me off so I can get to the question about gravity I wanted to get to. But firstly, starting off with 9/11, the Twin Towers were designed to take a hit from a Boeing 707, which is the same size today as a Boeing 737, although it was 4-engine back in the late 60s, early 50s, and it was designed to be landing at LaGuardia in fog with no fuel.
Actually,
The airplane.
It
that's
was
not
actually
true. It was
insured.
designed to take multiple jet impacts, not singular jet impacts. But go on.
It's no, sorry. What did you just say? It was designed to.
Take
Riley,
3
that's what he
planes. It was
said.
designed to take 3 747s consecutively. So it wasn't
it was
designed to take
insured.
one
the
impact from a
747
737.
wasn't
It was designed to take
designed
3
when it happened.
impacts
It was to
from
take a single impact from an
747s,
empty
as I understand it.
707 landing at LaGuardia in fog, meaning it was empty. It had no fuel. And the Boeing 707 is the same size as a Boeing 737 today with
Right.
fuel.
Well, are you aware that there is evidence that shows that the people that designed the 9/11 towers are on record saying that the 9/11 towers were designed to withstand multiple jet impacts, not singular jet impacts, multiple.
The only place I've heard that is on specific videos. But anyhow, moving on. The Twin Towers took hits from Boeing 767s, which are 3 times the size and weighing 350 tons because they were full of gas when they took off. Anyway, the next one is... Oh, shit, what was the next question?
Yeah, about gravity,
that?
but being full of gas won't affect anything. You couldn't get enough oxygen to get the fire hot enough to like affect the steel.
Oh, no, you can, man. When you got a plane full of... When I start up my airplane...
You need to inject oxygen into the fire to get the heat hot enough to affect the steel in a way that would like cause a collapse like that.
Yeah, it would, but when you've
You
got
have to make a specific
350
torch
ton
from it to
mass
be able
hitting
to
a steel
affect it.
core, that's going to cause massive structural damage.
Dude, there was
And they
melted
did-
It's not.
steel.
No.
like the workers' steel boots were melting after the event. Like it's not the planes, dude. Clearly not the planes.
Yeah, but all of the no World Trade Center evidence video footage shows the buildings collapsing from the bottom. They collapse from the impact. There's been no controlled demolition.
No, even the video
history
footage
of
of the
from
collapsing
all the
building
way up
proves
until
that
now.
that
They tried to
collapsed
tell us that
top
it was
down,
a pancake collapse.
like a
That's not
controlled
even true.
demolition. And there were also lots of traces found of nanothermite.
Right, can I just
So-
say that this is the tangent that I didn't want it to take? Let's forget
Okay.
9/11. Let's forget 9/11.
Okay, we'll forget that. The other one was there was another one before I wanted to get onto gravity. I can't remember what that was. So gravity on the flat Earth is, you guys have been saying it's density and buoyancy.
With a little bit of electromagnetic effect, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, disagree.
So how does that work in a zero G plane performing a parabola?
How does what work?
And-
Density. The density of the human that the plane is falling out the sky is matched by the velocity of the plane falling out the sky. So you get an
No,
equilibrium.
that's just you're just describing gravity.
No,
No, I'm not.
That's exactly
I'm saying
what
the
happens.
free fall speed of the human matches the free fall speed of the plane. Therefore, it appears to be floating.
Okay, that's good. So why on a high pressure day, a high pressure system, it's called an anticyclone, and you're in the northern hemisphere, I believe. Why don't, with weather systems, air pressure pushing down on us, how come we can't see a change in our weight?
Well,
can.
it doesn't affect
We should be able to see
the
it daily.
weight. It doesn't directly affect the weight. It just air pressure affects air friction, which is usually related to falling speed, how fast you will accelerate to that falling speed maximum, that type of thing.
I thought it
So
was the
weight-
case. I thought
weight
if
is
you went up
constant.
to Everest, you would weigh less. I thought that was the case, that there would be less pressure affecting, and effectively less pressure on top of you, therefore you would weigh slightly less. But maybe I've just got a misconception.
No. Well, if you're talking about density and pressure, then you're effectively talking about being thousands of feet under the ocean, that's what the pressure is. It's a datum or a point above you that's pressing down on you, which would be the same thing if it was the atmosphere.
Yeah, I
Which would
understand
mean that if it was a low pressure day, we should weigh less.
Yeah, but it's relative to the environment that you're in. It's not going to make you float
Yeah,
off.
and relative to the actual scale you're measuring with, because that's also going to be in the less pressured environment. So the weight is always, as you measure it, in relation to the total pressure system, whatever you're using.
You could probably
The
test
weight is
that with
always
a
going to
balloon.
be the same
Helium.
relation.
But do you know that's not the case? I mean, you're saying this and I don't know either way, so you're asserting it as though it's definitely not the case that you would weigh ever so slightly less, but I don't know if that's not the case either, so...
Yeah, but we could
Well,
test.
it's not the case in reality, because that's not how we take our weight.
Yeah, but
Okay.
we could test that though. Well, you could test that, couldn't you? You could get a helium balloon. You could exhaust all the helium out of it, put in a set amount of helium, and on a high pressure day, see how long it takes to get to a certain point. Do the same experiment on a low pressure day, exhaust all the helium out of it, put in a set amount of helium, let the balloon go, and measure the difference between the two. I'm sure you'd probably find that it would raise quicker in a low pressure, and then on a high pressure day, it would raise slower, right? That would be a test that you could test.
That still doesn't get around our weight, and that in a zero-G aeroplane.
So in
Well,
your model,
I don't
you've got
know,
gravity as an
240
effect of
knots
mass,
in
right?
a
Sorry, Jazz.
speed
Let me just
speed.
ask you this, Jazz. So you've got gravity being an effect of mass, and the people inside the plane are in free fall, right? Is the plane of a greater mass than the people? Yes or no?
No, that's not what the argument's about. The
Well,
argument
it's gravity,
is about,
right? Gravity is an effect of each object of mass having an attraction to a smaller object of mass, correct? It would have a greater attraction if it's physically larger in mass. I'm asking, is the plane larger in mass than the people inside it? Yes or no?
the size of the airplane doesn't matter. You could be in a 727 doing it, or you could be in a C5 Galaxy doing it.
Right,
The
and
speed
either
of
way, is the plane
parabola
of
is
greater
gonna be the same
mass than
regardless
its
of the mass of the
occupants?
people in
Yes or no? Are the people inside less mass or more mass than the plane?
That's irrelevant.
No, it's not. I haven't made my
Completely
point
irrelevant.
yet. I just need to ascertain whether or not you accept that the people inside the plane are of less mass than the plane itself. Once you've accepted that, I can move on with my point. But I need you to accept that the people inside are definitely less mass than the plane, correct?
I accept that the people are obviously less mass than the
Right,
less
so
mass than
according
the plane,
to
but the mass of the
gravitational
plane has
law,
nothing to do
why
with it.
aren't the people attracted to the sides of the plane, which is of greater mass than the people? If the law of gravity is to be accepted, the plane in free fall has got no effects of the
saying it
ground.
right
According
now,
to
Nathan.
you think that's gravity. Well, gravity is an effect of mass, and the thing of greater mass has a bigger attraction. So why aren't the people attracted to the sides of the plane?
And what has greater mass than the airplane?
Well, it's isolated according to your ideas of what's happening on the zero-G plane. So I'm asking you, in that situation, under your circumstances...
That's what I'm saying. The mass of the people and the mass of the plane has nothing to do with what they're doing.
Well, yeah, it does. They still have
free fall.
mass. They are still absolutely of mass, the people and the plane. And if we're to accept that one thing of greater mass would attract something of a smaller degree of mass, why doesn't the plane attract the people?
How much smaller?
Because, Nathan, you're talking about mass, which doesn't actually exist in what you're talking about. And that's what I'm saying.
The plane still absolutely has mass, and so do the people. They both have mass. They haven't lost mass because they're in free fall. They still have mass. The two cancel each other out. But I'm saying you still have a differential. The people are still less mass than the plane they're in, so why aren't they attracted to the sides of the plane if mass is what causes gravity?
Because they're attracted to the Earth. The airplane has nothing to do with it.
That's not how gravitational pull is supposed to work.
You can...
I can accept gravity, that it's just there, that it's universal. But gravitational pull, you should be able to prove that in a smaller scale. Like in this example, when you move down and counter the Earth's gravity so that everything floats, then objects should be pulled together through gravitational pull.
Especially if there's something of much greater mass, like an aeroplane in the mix.
You can go out to your local air club tomorrow and get in a small Cessna 172 and do a parabola. Get your pilot to do a parabola, and you will go weightless.
Yes, and I'm asking, in that situation, why are you not attracted? Why are you not attracted to the greater mass, i.e., the plane? If gravity is a force of attraction through objects of greater mass, why are the people who are of smaller mass than the plane not attracted to the side of the plane?
Because that's not the greater mass.
You're saying the person's of similar mass to the plane? Are you insane? Are you nuts? Do you not know how much a plane weighs?
I think he's saying that no mass on our Earth is so great that it can overcome the giant, enormous mass of our Earth itself. So the Earth's mass will always trump any other type of force. Doesn't actually make any sense. Like, if gravitational pull would work, then it would also work on the small scale, especially if the gravitational motion towards the Earth itself would be negated.
Right, Cavendish.
Then gravitational pull would show on every scale.
So we've got big balls and small balls. Small balls being attracted to, right? We've got a big plane and small people, P. Big plane, small people. Why aren't the small people attracted to the big plane?
Because you'd have to put them on a torsion balance, because the torsion balance would negate the gravitational effect of the Earth. So if you build them on a torsion balance, they would.
Right, okay.
All I'm saying is it doesn't matter the size of the airplane. You can go and do it in a small 4-seater airplane. You can do it in a A380. It doesn't matter. You're still going weightless, and it's got nothing to do with the airplane.
Well, but the aeroplane, as I keep pointing out, does have mass, and that's a factor in your gravity equation.
You don't
The object
grow
of mass
weightless.
is the thing
You
that
just
attracts the thing with
counter
less
the motion.
mass. That's how it works in your ideas about what gravity are. Therefore, if you're negating the Earth's mass relative to the two things, the plane and the people, you're only left with those two things in isolation with each other. And one has a greater mass than the other. And yet, according to P. Mars, we have to put a torsion balance in place to see this effect.
When you get a chance,
No,
I'd like to present at some point, not now obviously, but I've just done an observation this morning and I'm dead excited about it, that's all.
Yeah, put it up now if you want. I'll put you on screen.
Okay.
There you
I
go.
am actually sharing.
Yeah, you are.
So yeah, I went down to the pier to measure the height of the pier, and straight away I saw damn well that I could see those mountains. I wasn't sure whether I'd captured them, but watch what happens now. All these mountains, all as far away as Wales. There's the wind farms just passing them now, and I have got still pictures of these as well.
So a torsion balance is used to measure weak forces, and the forces you're describing in your hypothetical scenario, Nathan, are weak forces, so you would require a torsion balance to measure them.
Well, you shouldn't see any of these. These should all be behind the curve. So it obviously wasn't a one-off, Nathan.
No, I think the Earth stays flat all the time.
It was quite tricky to get to do this because the pier was shut, so I had to illegally break in to do this. They had all the workers on the end of the pier, and they were all repairing all the machines and everything, all the arcades and everything that was in it. So I had to sneak in.
We were talking about your evidence earlier, and for me, the strongest part was actually what you presented yesterday, because you've got really clear wind farms to break up the field of view, so you can actually pinpoint you between the pier, the wind farms, and the mountains in the background, and narrow right down which mountains you're looking at based on that.
Yeah.
And what you're left with is mountains that shouldn't be there.
I've also got plenty of images as well. I'm not sure what you've been talking about, but let's go to this one here. I'll just show you some of these as I've gone. You can see the mountain in the background there. This is me on the beach. You can see it a bit better as I move along. Same mountain ranges are still there, still really visible. If I open that in Paint, might be able to highlight it. But this is literally, I've only been there an hour ago or so. So adjustments.
We were moaning about why you hadn't passed on that Google Drive link, but all is forgiven.
This is funny, by the way. P. Mars mentioned the Coulomb's torsion balance. It's funny because I've actually seen that thing like in person in school, but yeah, it's still all metal balls. So
yeah, really brought out the detail there, Auntie. That's cool.
Electricity.
Like that. That's from the beach. That's just one of them from the beach, and I've got my GPS on these, so it should be pretty cool. If I just flick through these, I also scan in and out, so you can triangulate my exact position. So
we've got about 20 minutes, Ranty. If you want to bring up all the data so it's all condensed into one slot, like the GPS, what you're doing now as well, showing you your physical position.
Okay, so from this one, properties. Let's see. Hopefully, I've got GPS on it. There we go. Latitude, longitude, altitude 2.9. I'll try and show you on Google Earth where I was as well. I think it's on the previous images that I'll have showed you exactly where I was on the different file. But there's the GPS, latitude and longitude. If I go to this other file and go down to the last ones, hopefully yeah, so yeah, this is where you're getting an idea of where I was. That's backwards, isn't it? So there we go. This is where I was. And then I zoom in a bit more, You know, that's me filming some boats in the distance. But yeah, so this will triangulate perfectly. And I decided to put myself here so that if anyone wanted to know exactly where I was looking, it would be through these. And the GPS is on that. If I go on the GPS on this one, there we go. Latitude, longitude, altitude 5.4 on this place. Very cool.
Very cool.
So yeah, we can still see it. It wasn't a fluke. I'll open this one again. Open with paint.net. So same location, adjustments, brightness and contrast. Hopefully it should bring it out. There we go. Look at that.
Look at that.
Look at that.
Again, so it's all condensed. So can you now take us to Google Earth, draw a line through this pier, show us which mountains they are, and then do the curve calcs? Because we'll have a full presentation.
Right. I'll have to get the I'll have to do the work on the GPS. But let me say I'm going to say roughly in this location here, about there, and I was looking through this direction here. I'll have to work on the GPS and everything. I can present all that for tomorrow, but I think it was roughly like here and looking in this sort of direction. So yeah, directly in the same place as last time, really, over at these mountains here, I would say. I'll just put that in and just double check that. But I can have all this presented ready for tomorrow.
It's all right. You're doing it now, mate. You're doing a really good job.
But yeah, so it's sort of that direction. And also, I mean, this is also killer as well, you know, this video. Because, I mean, it was very windy on there, so I didn't have my tripod, actually. As I said, I had to sort of break in. But I could see the mountains over here. And you can actually see as I come in, I could probably take screenshots of this and highlight. In fact, I'll do that. I'll print screen that now. And if I do the same things on this.
We're looking at Snowdon now, though, right?
No, we haven't got to Snowdon yet. Snowdon is in the image, as I'm sure. Right, adjustments. There we go. Look at that. There's the wind farms. There's the mountains coming into view. This isn't, you know, you can't see it in here, but let me pan across again. And then I'll take another screenshot here. I'll do the same adjustments on this. My altitude here is 40 feet because I'm on the edge of the pier and I measured it today. So let's do that. File. There's all the mountain ranges. I'm sure these will all be able to be triangulated. You can actually see the wind farms here as well. Let me just do the brightness and contrast on this, and there you go. Can you see the? Oh, hang on. What's that gone? My computer's just being a bit of a. There you go. You see the wind farms there. Save that on there. See the mountain. So, what do you think?
Brilliant. Can you just do the curve calcs on it lastly, just to show that this shouldn't be seen?
Yeah, sure. Well, curve calcs. Let's see.
Ranty, I think that it's another perfect observation that we see repeatedly. However, Nick with Noel thinks that you're showing curvature. Do you want to respond to that?
Not really. I don't. You know, I mean, I don't think I need to respond to it. Basically,
I think Nick's become a troll. Literally has become a troll.
So basically, from that pier, and I'm looking out over here. What I'm seeing is I'm seeing all these mountain ranges here, every single one of them, through the wind farms, every single one of them. And we know these sort of distances are like 60 miles. I'll put the curve calcs in for 60 miles,
I agree with Nick. It looks pretty curvy to me.
Okay. The viewer height is 40, 1,500 feet refracted. You know, all this shit.
P-Mars, could you talk us through why you think it looks curvy? I'd like to hear this if there's enough time.
Well, like he showed those like wind, the wind farms. They're like obstructed. You couldn't see the bottom of them.
All right. Okay. What about the land?
Well, you can see that the land is higher than the wind farm, and you know that I'm below the wind farm height because my altitude is only 2.9. So the wind farms themselves are like 350 feet tall, and yet the mountains are still higher than that. So that shows that the mountain ranges in the background. If we work on, actually, let's do that.
I would like Pete to address it though, Ranty, on account of the fact that this is a soundly debunking. So what we have from your image is an effect of refraction that is demonstrated by soundly, with the wind farms that are further away looking smaller as they get further away, and dipping down to what people on the globe side think is curving around the Earth. The problem is that beyond that P, you have exponentially more curvature that should block your view of the land. So yeah, we accept that there's a refractive effect happening on a flat plane with the wind turbines, but you guys think that's curvature. The problem is there's not just those things in the actual image. There's land that's further away, further behind the curve, right? So useful to show that this effect on the wind turbines is definitely not curvature.
So P-Mars,
just really quickly.
Yeah.
You go ahead, Jazz. We've got about 15 minutes left, so this is well open for contention.
Oh no, just really quickly. No, I just was talking about this sort of thing, and I was just before about the old GPS satellites, and it was Branty or Sleeping or someone was saying something about satellites exist and they're land-based.
I mean, you've waited till Ranty's got an absolute globe-destroying point on screen to ask us about a subject that's about 20 minutes old. So before we do get back onto that subject, how do you explain this land, Jazzaconda, that's gone, shouldn't be seen?
P-Mars is the one that thinks it's curved. Forget Jazz.
P-Mars.
Let's get P-Mars on it.
Yeah, no.
Wise choice, Jazz.
It's definitely curved. Like, if things are land-based and it's not satellite, then why are there not navigation
Sorry, maybe you
charts
didn't hear me when I said shut up about the satellite thing for now. Jazz, shut your mouth. P's going to address why we don't see any curvature in this image. If you're not going to address it, keep your mouth shut till later.
I think there's a curvature. Like, I bet if you measure the horizon, that would be not level. And you see objects, or the bottom of the objects are obstructed. And if the Earth was flat, we wouldn't see that. We'd be able to see the whole object.
Okay, well, what I'm showing you here is that there's the hub height of the wind farms, as you can see, right? Now they're at about 330 feet. So there's the hard horizon. So 330 feet, and then you've got to the top of the mountain, which is probably twice as much. This is just doing it ad hoc, by the way. So you'll have to bear with me. So that's basically saying that in the background, that should be 660 feet, but it's not, because it's only those wind farms are only 40% of the way there. So what would that work out? 160, 40%, that's what, 60% extra. Sorry, it's about 1,600 feet. So as a very quick estimate there, what it's showing is that is about 1,600 feet high.
So I'm assuming there's like a beach before the mountains start, and we can't see that.
That's because I've just changed the image.
How small would you expect the beach to be, P-Mars, in terms of pixels on this image?
I think you guys are proving the ball right now.
Okay, well, I'll explain it to you again.
Hang on. Show them the geometric curve first. Let's start with the geometric curve.
Well, this is doing ad hoc, so you're gonna have to. This is really gonna have to bear with me on this, because, you know, we're looking at 20 miles to the wind farms, yeah, and then beyond the wind farms, these mountain ranges over here. Come on, mouse keeps messing up. 50 miles. right? So it's 20 miles to the wind farm and 50 miles to the mountains. So that's a 40%. So the actual wind farms are 40% of the way there, yeah? Let's work this on a calculator when my mouse decides to work. So let's work this out. Calculator, right? So the hub heights are roughly 300. So let's say 300. So we've got to times it by 2 because the image says that those mountain ranges are twice the height. That's 600. Now 600 is only 40% of. So what would be if that's 10% divided by? Oh, hang on. Divide by. Hang on, I'll call this out. 60%. Someone help me with the maths, please.
What are you trying to do?
1200. Hang on, 1200. 1500 feet. Yeah. So yeah. So what it's showing is on this image here. Was it this image? This image here. What it's showing is now that the top of those mountains in the background should be 1500 feet. That's what we're actually seeing to. Because the hub height 300 shows 600, but it's only 40% of the way there, so it has to be 1500. And those mountains, I'm going to see, let's see what those mountains come out at in height. 1300, 1400. Hang on, what's that? What was the highest point there?
Aren't these the mountains that are meant to be totally behind the curve?
Yeah, everything should be gone.
So I don't know how PMARS can think that this is a curve supporting video.
Well, there we go. We've got 1,527 feet there. And just by my quick maths, I've worked out that we're seeing 1,500 feet high based on the foreground showing the height of the turbines and the distance to the actual mountains behind it. So that's in my opinion, that's saying it's flat.
It's obviously saying it's flat. PMARS, why do you think that mountains that are supposed to be behind the curve, that are currently visible in the evidence, is supporting a curve of a ball Earth?
This is
Can
like
I just interject real quick just here, just on this very image?
Well, Pete's just been asked a question.
I'd just say, like, this is like the boy who cried wolf to me, because a lot of time I've seen a lot of these claims that we shouldn't be able to see an image, and then when I've actually looked into it and done research into it, like, I found that everything is consistent with the ball model. And at this point, like, I just don't even care. Like, if you're saying I can't see something in the distance, like, I just don't believe you, because you guys have cried wolf so many times that I don't believe any of your research. I don't think you guys research very well at all.
Do you understand the concept of crying wolf, PMARS? Do you know what that story is about?
Yeah, it's like someone keeps crying wolf, and then eventually when the wolf is real...
They've been joined by the Rumpus.
No one believes in them. So, like, even if you guys actually come up with evidence...
Hold on, Pete, can I just say a quick hello? Hello, Rumpus. How you doing?
Well, you've misidentified the mountains around here as per usual. I've put a link in the thing showing you which set of mountains you should be looking at. You're an incompetent idiot.
Thanks, mate.
You're an idiot, Rumpus.
Bye, Rumpus.
Bye.
Well, hang on a minute. Yes, we're just showing a photo of the horizon with clouds below the horizon. So is it foggy over there, is it? Are the clouds right on the water, is it foggy?
No, it's just different levels of opacity, mate.
Are you friggin' serious?
Absolutely. It's not as clear a day, that's all.
Yeah,
so a fishing boat 60 miles out there, it's not foggy.
Not foggy. It's the moisture in the atmosphere that makes it opaque. So the more moisture, the more opaque. The less moisture, the more translucent. What we're seeing at is a level of translucency that allows us to see stuff. You know, because it's not a clear day.
Sleeping, that leads me to my second question that I forgot about. We were talking about GPS satellites, and you said that satellites don't exist. Is that right?
Not in space.
So, have you ever researched orbital mechanics?
Yes.
No, you haven't.
Okay, no.
Exactly. Just like I thought.
You think
you can?
True.
Like I've said before, this is the golden key for the flat Earth. If you can disprove orbital mechanics, you prove to everyone on Earth
Yeah.
That this big
Why
old
aren't they
bitch can't
focusing
be
on
a
that?
sphere and masses can't
To be honest,
orbit it.
Jack, it's beginning to sound like Grimvy when he says vernal equinox. Gobbity gobbity gobbity. No one gives a shit, man. I'll be honest. No one cares.
Yeah, but taking photos across water doesn't really prove anything. You know, someone's going to come back with an opposite point, and then you're going to come up with an opposite point, and they're going to come back. But like he just said, that guy just said, if you can prove that, because look at what it implies. If the Earth is flat, look at the things that it implies and try and prove that. But you don't. You just kind of keep taking pictures across the.
But that's what I'm saying about orbital mechanics. If you can disprove, if they can disprove orbital mechanics, you disprove that a mass can orbit a circular mass.
Do you know
that
what?
would make
Orbital
everyone
mechanics are
question
purely
space.
theoretical. It's
You're not
just a
worth
theory of
responding
how
to
it works.
You
You don't have any proof it works.
Why? Because I'm right.
No, because I've given you 2 opportunities to either pick Venus or Jupiter, and you haven't chosen one, yet still claim orbital mechanics proves something. Well,
orbital mechanics proves the Earth's a globe. That's why I'm saying to you, disprove it. That's all
Whatever.
you
No,
people
they just
have.
prove
All right,
how the
Hold
heavenly
on.
bodies
Proves it's a
operate.
ball. Orbital mechanics
Doesn't
proves
prove
it's a ball.
anything
Let's go back to
about
Ranty. I don't care about your orbital mechanics nonsense. It's like
Because you don't understand it. Just
That's
because
Oh,
you
you got.
don't
Hold
understand.
on,
That's
Ranty. You
why
got
you
60
don't,
seconds
because you
to.
can't disprove it.
Hold on, Ranty's got. You got 60 seconds, mate, to round out your point. Then I'm going to end the show.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, 1,500. You're welcome to. I would like to actually see Rumpus debunk what's on screen right now. I've given him the GPS for these images, so he knows the GPS. He knows where I was, and I want him to find the wind farms,
It's so
and I want him to debunk me.
pointless.
That it?
That's it.
Well, he's put a link in the info box. Just check it out. I've just read it. It doesn't seem to debunk anything as far as I could ascertain at a quick glance. But
Don't bother. It's 15 pages of nonsense. Just ignore the link in the side chat.
well, I don't know.
Single
Why?
observation
He's
proves
clearly done some work. Well, I'll be looking at it, regardless of whether or not you do. I hope you have a look at it too, Ranty, and assess its validity.
Yeah, I'll
No, I wouldn't look at it if I were you, Ranty. I'd challenge him to do it online.
And do you know what's even better? I can go every day probably and get this as long as it's just the sun's out a little bit. She'll be able to see this every single day.
Randy, I haven't talked to you too much. Just really quickly, what side are you on?
Me?
Who, me? Oh, I'm a flat Earth.
Okay. So you're taking photos of the sun. I'm at 45 degrees south, and the twilight and dawn takes 2 hours from the time you see the sun till the time it gets light, from the time the sun goes down till it gets dark. 2 hours.
Right.
How do you explain that on flat Earth when it takes 10 minutes at the equator?
I've not looked into it.
How do you explain Venus being visible at night time when it shouldn't be?
How do you explain this picture?
Venus being visible at night time
Yeah. At night
when it
time.
shouldn't be.
Correct. But you can see Venus at night time when it's dark. How's that possible with orbital
You can
mechanics?
see Venus. Well, that's actually quite interesting because you can only see Venus in the very early hours of the morning and twilight in the southern hemisphere. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, but once it goes dark, you shouldn't be able to see Venus at all. Correct?
Oh, well, it's different. It's the opposite in the southern hemisphere because it's a spinning globe and we're on the bottom. So complete opposite.
If you say so.
And with that, I'm going to say first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this debate. And also a massive, huge, enormous thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. If you've not done so already, be sure to like, comment, share and subscribe. I've been Nathan Oakley and I will see you all in the next video.